Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Spectator Sports. This is Sebastian Fonseca. You know what time it is, it's March Madness, and we're here to break down all the action from the opening weekend. But before we get into it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It makes a massive difference in that YouTube algorithm. Take a look at our Instagram and TikTok pages, links are in the description. And don't forget about our Spotify page. And when you get a chance to click on that link in the description, please leave a 5-star review. It makes a massive difference to help us out there too. March Madness is here, and the first weekend, including the first round, actually brought a ton of upsets, including Fairleigh Dickinson upsetting Purdue in a historic upset of a 1 seed being upset by a 16 seed. And this is the first time it's happened since UMBC did so to UVA a few years ago. To be honest, I was really thinking that Purdue was a big-time favorite in this tournament. They are in the Big Ten, and they were having a pretty successful season. They had some little bumps or chinks in their armor during the regular season, but I thought they were pretty dominant in that Big Ten tournament. The Big Ten has come up small in recent years, and this was yet another example of them flaming out. This is a historic upset for not just a 16 seed, but also just for smaller schools in general. And to piggyback on that, there's also a huge upset with Princeton beating Arizona, and that is a 15 seed going up to beating a 2 seed. And after winning against Missouri on Sunday, they are now into the Sweet 16, kind of like St. Peter's last year, who made it all the way to the Elite 8 of the tournament. But that is the only double-digit seed left in the tournament, as it's been fairly top-heavy. But don't count out the East region, because in that region it's fairly wide open, and out of all the teams left, I would have high expectations for Michigan State's Tom Izzo-led team, and they've always been poised to make deep runs in the tournament, so expect them to make some noise in the East region. The top seeds that are left are Houston and Alabama. Both teams had pretty decent tests in the opening rounds, but they were able to coast to the Sweet 16. I think particularly to look out for is Houston, because they've been having some injury issues with their lead guard Marcus Sasser, but still he's been able to play in limited action, and they've been able to prove that they're just more than just Sasser alone. And they're definitely going to be on a collision course to Texas, who I think could go all the way to the Final Four, and if not win the entire tournament, but let's see what happens. For Alabama, they came into this tournament as the #1 overall seed, and they were able to coast to a reasonable second round victory over UMD, and now they're going to be into the Sweet 16 yet again. Defending champions Kansas came into this tournament with some head coaching issues, as their head coach Bill Self had to admit himself to the hospital due to undisclosed health reasons, and he missed the start of this tournament, and due to that they lost in the second round to Arkansas, so they are already out. And I see that UCLA, who were runners-up in the Pac-12 Conference Championship Tournament, I'll see them probably being the favorites out of that region. A couple weeks ago, Jordan Poole sent back a bounce pass to an NBA referee, and he somehow got teched for that. Now, I have a particular issue with this. The bounce pass itself didn't seem to be aggressive. It didn't hit the referee. The referee was able to catch it quite comfortably, and yet you still give him a technical foul. I don't understand how referees became so soft that they have to give out technical fouls to such an atrocity that is a bounce pass. I would understand if it would have hit the referee, or if the referee wasn't looking for the pass and it hit him. That's obviously something that you have to keep an eye out for, because that's obviously NBA referee safety. That's very important, and that should be a forefront in the NBA, but to give a technical foul like that is extremely soft. And to go back to FVV, where he just went in on Ben Taylor. I mean, he earned a $30K fine in a profanity-laced tirade in that post-game press conference. I understand the frustrations there, but why do refs get so much protection? I understand they're a reflection of the league, but the league can make mistakes. NBA referees can make mistakes. We see 2-minute reports come out about how there are missed calls that are reported, but they have no impact because the game has already been played out. You can't just go back in time and say, oh, well, we missed that call, let's fix that right then and there. It's just a report or a grading system. So I'm a big proponent of not just media members criticizing referees, players, coaches should be able to criticize referees of any sport without subject to fine or any type of punishment. And I'm all here for it. So we need to stop protecting or coddling referees, because there are people like us too that are subject to mistakes, and they should be subject to just this amount of criticism from players and coaches. The Golden State Warriors are continuing to have issues on the road. In a recent road trip where they lost games to the LA Clippers and a couple games to the Memphis Grizzlies, who've been chirping back and forth. We heard a week or two ago with the beef between Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green reigniting, and then now with the latest one in their matchup on Saturday, Klay Thompson got in the face of Dillon Brooks talking about how he's not going to be a relevant player in about 5 to 10 years. This is his little 10 minutes of fame. I understand that the Warriors are a dynasty and the Grizzlies are just a team that are up and coming. They're coming for the Warriors, sure. But still, the Warriors' lack of being able to transfer their play onto the road are greatly concerning as the postseason draws closer. With Andrew Wiggins probably sidelined for the rest of the season due to personal reasons, and we sincerely hope that whatever he's going through is addressed and he's not rushed back by any means, and I sincerely wish Andrew Wiggins well. But to the basketball side of things, the Golden State Warriors just cannot play away from Chase Arena. As presently slated, they'll definitely be missing out on home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs and possibly going to be in the play-in tournament. So they'll be playing at least 4 games on the road in every playoff series. I'm not sure exactly how the Western Conference standings will shake out and what matchups we could see for the Golden State Warriors, but if they continue to struggle like this, I expect them to be having a very short stay in the NBA postseason. To talk about a few big headlines in the earlier free agency period of the NFL offseason, we have Jimmy G going to the Vegas Raiders, and he'll be replacing Derek Carr. I think this is pretty much a lateral move. You're going with Derek Carr, who has been pretty much your franchise quarterback for the last 9 years. Yes, he's come up small in certain aspects, but he also has had historically poor defenses and a revolving door of head coaches. I'm not sure where Jimmy G provides the consistency, because when he plays, yeah, he contributes to winning, but he's not the sole factor of winning, and he's also been very injury prone. I am curious what they're going to do with their number 7 pick, because I thought, or utilize that pick to make a move to get a better quarterback, or even move up in the draft. We did hear rumors that they were going to try and move up to number 1. They couldn't get that. So will Jimmy G be a bridge quarterback? Will they pick a quarterback at number 7 like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson if you were to drop all the way to 7? I don't know. Regardless, the Raiders need to shore up that defense. In a division that you have Mahomes, Herbert, Russell Wilson, you're coming into this season with the 4th best quarterback in a super talented division, and you need to get pressure on the quarterback. Now, you have Max Crosby, pretty good defensive end. It'll be great to find another guy you can pair up to get pressure on both sides and also shore up the secondary, but still, the Raiders have a ton of moves to make if they want to be competitive in the AFC West. Darren Waller has been traded from the Vegas Raiders to the New York Giants, and I think this is an excellent move for the Giants. Pretty low pick. I mean, it's only a 3rd-round pick that they're sending over for a guy of Darren Waller's talent. Now, Waller has been injured the last couple of seasons, and he hasn't been living up to that contract that he signed a couple of years ago with the Vegas Raiders. But as long as he's healthy, he's a pretty dangerous pass-catching tight end. He reminds me of when Evan Ingram was there with the New York Giants, because he greatly helped the development of Daniel Jones. If they can figure out a long-term deal for Saquon Barkley, offensively, the Giants definitely have something there. I'm not sure exactly what the ceiling is with Daniel Jones. He did sign a massive extension. We'll see what happens with the New York Giants. They're going to have to make some additional moves if they want to close that gap between them and the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East. A huge move for the Miami Dolphins, where they only gave up a 3rd-round pick for Jalen Ramsey. And obviously, the LA Rams are kind of in salary cap hell. They had to let go of Bobby Wagner, and now they traded away an all-pro cornerback in Jalen Ramsey over to the Miami Dolphins and only getting back a 3rd-round pick. The Dolphins are big winners in this, and now they have Xavier Howard, who is on the decline, but a solid quarterbacks still in today's age to pair up with Jalen Ramsey. They have Holland, who's been a solid safety for them last season, and if he can build on that, I think they have a pretty good secondary. I mean, they already have a really dynamic offense, and they've been able to bring back a lot of their core pieces back. I would like to see what they do with their tight end swap because they let go of Mike Gesicki, so they're going to have to fill in that void. With these moves, I think the Dolphins have a really good shot to win the AFC East because the Bills, as we saw towards the tail end of last season, they are become super dependent on Josh Allen, and he's shown signs of regression from his previous seasons, and that's maybe due to Brian Dable leaving, not being there to coach up Josh Allen, so we'll see what happens in 2023, but they've certainly closed the gap. As long as Tua stays healthy, I think the AFC East is the Dolphins division to lose. Last week, Aaron Rodgers confirmed on Pat McAfee's podcast that he'll be joining the New York Jets, and the two teams are confirming what exactly the compensation is. Packers are trying to get as much as they can because they feel that Rodgers is an all-time great quarterback, and they're doing the Jets a great service by simply trading him away. I expect them to get at least a first-round draft pick, if not two, or at least a few second-round picks. And we know that Rodgers is 38 years old, so he'll be on the back end of his career, but he's been relatively healthy, and I think with him getting a reset, a new culture, new life in New York is going to provide a new mindset for him. His teammates are certainly younger, so it's going to be interesting to see how he meshes because last year he kind of took the whole offseason very lightly as soon as he signed that mega deal with the Green Bay Packers. He didn't really take the time to get integrated with those new weapons in Christian Watson and Dobbs. And he's also bringing in a wish list. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Jets do because I don't know if Mercedes Lewis and Alan Lazard are going to be big game changers for the New York Jets. I think him being able to be a different quarterback compared to what Zach Wilson was is going to be a huge difference. I'm worried that the Jets are just trying to placate to so much desperation that they're trying to do anything that they can to please Aaron Rodgers. And that puts them in the back seat in terms of who has the true power in the organization. So remember when Russell Wilson was traded, he brought in a lot of power. He had his own office and it created a lot of friction with the Broncos locker room. Hopefully Rodgers avoids that, and we'll see what exactly happens whenever he joins the New York Jets. It's been certainly a dramatic week for the Philadelphia Eagles. They went from potentially releasing Darius Slay to extending him for another 2 seasons, and then they also were able to re-sign James Bradbury as well, and now they keep that tandem cornerback duo together. Now they did lose CJ Gardner-Johnson as he was supposed to be trying to find a deal as a top safety in this league. He didn't get the money that he really wanted, and with that, he decided to sign a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions. It leaves the door open for what the Eagles would do at the top and the safety positions. I see them trying to replace CJ Gardner-Johnson with the top safety prospect in the draft. In addition to losing CJ Gardner-Johnson, the Eagles lost Isaac Seumalo and Miles Sanders, who were key starters for their Super Bowl team last year, but they did replace at least Miles Sanders with Rashad Penny. I do think that they'll also dip into some of their draft stock and get another running back in this upcoming draft, but they'll have to bring up Cam Jurgens, who's been in waiting to see if he's going to take over as the starting center or move to right guard. And it seems that he's going to be moving to right guard in this upcoming season, but he's under a great offensive line coach with Stoutland University, so I expect Cam Jurgens to be just fine, working right next to an all-time great center in Jason Kelce. So far, the Eagles have been able to retain quite a few veterans, including Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. In bringing back Jason Kelce as well, I think those core guys are just so key in bringing the cohesiveness and keeping that together. And credit to Howie Roseman, who I thought would lose quite a few of these free agents due to various moves and cap restrictions, but he's been able to do the very best he can, especially with a guy like Darius Slay, who's been historically pretty good cornerback for a position that they've greatly needed the last few years. Also credit to him signing Marcus Mariota because they let Gardner Minshew walk in free agency and they brought a guy who's very similar to Jalen Hurts' style of play. In case Jalen were to go down with an injury, they can simply try to have a guy who has a similar background and utilize him in that RPO mindset that Nick Sirianni really likes to run in Philadelphia. The quarterfinals are all set for the Champions League. They have the drawing with Real Madrid taking on Chelsea. This is a rematch of last year's quarterfinal matchup. And then you have Manchester City taking on Bayern Munich. And the top half of this bracket is particularly very competitive. In the bottom half of the bracket, it's interesting because you have two Italian teams going up against each other head-to-head in Napoli and AC Milan, and then you have Benfica going up against Inter Milan. You could get, potentially in the semifinals, you could get an all-Milan battle, which would be pretty fun to watch, but still interesting to see Serie A teams get a chance to move on into at least the semifinal stages, and I'm really intrigued by these matchups as well. But the top half of the bracket, like I said, is very, very competitive, and I still, if I were to rank these teams, I would put Real Madrid just based on their championship pedigree at 1, Manchester City at 2 because they have all the firepower, and especially like Haaland had 5 goals in that second leg against RB Leipzig, which was unreal. And then Bayern Munich, who they're going up against head-to-head. I just think whoever comes out of this top half of the bracket in the final will be able to walk away this year as Champions League winners of 2023. Barcelona has had some recent dominance over their hated rivals in Real Madrid. In 3 meetings so far in 2023, they've all gone Barcelona's way, with the latest being another El Clasico win against Los Blancos, winning 2-1, and this puts them 12 points clear in La Liga. A big-time goal by Kessie was able to put Barcelona in front, and some assistance by VAR was able to disallow Real Madrid equalizer, and that was able to preserve a 2-1 win. And like I said, that puts them 12 points ahead of Real Madrid with about 10 matches left to go. To piggyback on this recent dominance by Barcelona, they had wins against Real Madrid in Supercopa and the first leg of the Copa del Rey. This begs the question, is Barcelona truly back as being the kings of Spain once again? Last week, the NBA issued an 8-game suspension to Memphis Grizzlies guard Ja Morant after the controversy that happened 2 weeks ago with him flashing a gun in an IG Live video. Now, promptly after this came into light, the Memphis Grizzlies shut him down for a couple games, and then they continued to hold him out. Also, Ja has done his part as well in seeking out counseling. In an interview with Jalen Rose, he was able to talk about some of these responsibilities or these added on pressures that he's had being the new breadwinner in the family and kind of adapting on the fly as he's been a young kid in college to now being a superstar in the NBA. And I understand it's no easy feat adjusting to that on the fly, also being a father too. And we do forget that he is just a 23-year-old kid at the end of the day, and there's people that he was supposed to be responsible for that are just not directly his family, and those can be adjustments because he feels the need to pay them back or just feel the need to be part of his inner circle. While I do think Ja's actions were greatly immature and also very dangerous, I do credit him for seeking out help and also taking a step back. That shows a great deal of self-awareness and also prioritizing himself over the needs of others. So I wish Ja the very best, and I hope that he comes back to the court as quickly as he sees fit. Lonzo Ball is undergoing yet another knee surgery, and this will leave him out for the 2023-2024 season. We haven't seen Lonzo Ball play since January of 2022 when he tore his meniscus, and that kept him out for the remainder of the 2022 season. And as he arrived into training camp of this season, he complained of discomfort and he couldn't quite get over that feeling, and he decided to undergo yet another surgery as the Bulls stated that he would not return for the 2023 season. So it's a real shame because he is a guy that has all the tools. He has a great passing ability, a great court vision as well, all the physical gifts to be a talented wing defender. We've seen it in limited action. It just hasn't been able to be a consistent product in terms of health. He was a guy that flamed out earlier in his career with the LA Lakers, but after being traded to the New Orleans Pelicans and later playing for the Chicago Bulls, he showed flashes that he could be a very serviceable player. I'd love to see him revive his career once he returns to the court in another couple of seasons, but right now I'm not sure exactly where he stands, and I would really hope that his career is able to be revived whenever he can return to the court. Jalen Carter is in the midst of a lot of off-field controversy after confirming his involvement in a fatal crash that involved street racing after celebrating that national championship in January that resulted in the deaths of his teammate and also a UGA staff member. He was promptly arrested after the start of the combine after turning himself in and pleading no contest. This obviously creates a big distraction for any teams that are looking to draft him in this upcoming NFL draft. And he came into the Georgia Pro Day out of shape. He gained 9 pounds and looked very slow after failing to complete most of those drills. And I think this is a big disservice by his representation and his agent, because he already showed his talent on the field in this season. And given that all this stuff is going on in the background, I think it was just best to hold him out, because he's already proven he's a very elite player. With his draft stock continuing to decline, it's safe to say he's definitely going to be out of the top 5. And it's just a question of how far will he fall. So that's it for this episode of Spectator Sports. Thank you as always for tuning in. The audio from this podcast will be uploaded to Spotify, and take a look at our Instagram and TikTok pages. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, you know what to do. And until next time, take care and be safe.